Welcome back. All right, now we are going to talk about the Eastern Conference Final. And if it feels like these teams have met each other before, it is true. They met 2 years ago in the Eastern Conference Final. Florida won that one in 4 straight. So what's interesting is we can look at that and say, well, it's a sweep. Carolina couldn't compete. The reality was this series was achingly close. 3-2 victory for Florida in the first game in the fourth overtime. So we'll see if we get that again. The second game went to the first overtime and got solved. 2-1 win for Florida. Florida wins the third game 1-0, and then they won the fourth game 4-3. So it was a very back and forth series. Carolina had some opportunities, but in the end, Florida beat them. Now I'm wearing Florida because I do feel like even though Carolina's got more rest, I like Florida's chances. Now in that 4 game series that Florida won all four, only 6 goals in that series for Carolina. They're just going to need to be better. Now, this year, for the record and for what it's worth, Florida won 2 out of 3. What's interesting is November 29th and November 30th. I remember this because it was a 6-3 win for Florida and then a 6-0 win for Florida. Florida really ragdolled Carolina. Now, the third meeting on January 2nd was a 3-1 victory. So Carolina's going to have to be a heck of a lot better than they were in the November meetings, which were 6 months ago. So probably not at the top of their mind at this point in time. Game 1 is tomorrow in Raleigh, though. So what's interesting is Carolina takes 10 games to get here. Florida takes 12. So Florida might be a little more beat up than Carolina at this point in the playoffs. But once that puck drops on the first game, yeah, the difference disappears pretty quickly. So looking at Carolina first, they do have home ice advantage. Aho, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points in 10 games. Jarvis also has 10 points via 4 goals and 6 assists. Svechnikov's had himself quite the playoff. 8 goals, 1 assist, 9 points in 10 games. Gostisbehere, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. Taylor Hall, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. Of course, he got his contract extension as well. Martinuk, a goal and 5 assists, 6 points. Stankoven, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. And Jackson Blake, 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. The interesting thing is both of these teams get here similarly. Both of them forecheck very well. Martinuk is one of the key guys for Carolina, along with Jordan Staal that way. On the Florida side, everybody does the forechecking, but their bottom 6 are excellent at it. We'll talk about theirs when we get there. On the Carolina side, Kotkaniemi, just the 3 assists in 10 games so far these playoffs. He's got to be due for a goal, right? And Nikishin's only played the 1 game. He got better as that game went along. We'll see what his role is in this series against the defending Stanley Cup champions. Freddie Anderson has been fantastic. 7-2, .937 save percentage. Kochetkov 1-0 in his appearance. 900 save percentage for Kochetkov. So the overall numbers, not too bad for Carolina. And again, Carolina gets through the first couple of rounds without taking a lot of losses. They get some rest here. Maybe it does help against Florida. Florida's leading scorers, Marchand and Luostarinen. Think about that for a second. It tells you just how well that third line's playing. Both players with 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points in 12 games. One of the things that I found interesting with Florida, and this was the case through the second half of the season and now in the playoffs, is some of their big guns just not producing that well. But when you're winning in the playoffs, people don't talk about it as much, do they? So Reinhart, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points in 12 games. Lindell, 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points in 12 games. Barkov, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points for him. Bennett, 6 goals and 3 assists for 9 points. And Matthew Tkachuk, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points too. So while none of them are lighting the world on fire with their scoring, all of them are getting points. And all of the lines are recording goals, and this is a pretty tough team to stop. Verhaeghe, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points, and Seth Jones, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in 12 games. Jones is playing some of the best hockey I've seen him play in a very long time. And of course, in net, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky, 8-4 with the .901 save percentage. That save percentage does not tell you how well he played against Toronto after the first couple of games where things didn't look so good. In fact, once game 3, at a point in that third game between Florida and Toronto, it looked like Florida was going down 3-0, and then they roared back. For Carolina, the important thing here is to avoid that roaring back portion of things. If they do get a lead in this series, you've got to watch Florida. Until that fourth win, you can't take anything for granted. I know they won't. I'm just throwing that out there. So looking at the numbers between these two teams, they're very similar. And one thing that Canes fans don't like is hearing how boring it is to watch them play hockey. And I think what that comes down to is, yes, they get a lot of shots. They don't get a ton of goals, though. Like, we look at goal scoring between these two teams. Florida outscores Carolina, and Carolina really is about shot suppression. And shot suppression isn't necessarily the most fun thing to watch. It's impressive, sure, if you understand what you're watching and if you're, really into the whole defensive side of the game. But for people who like to see breakaways, 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, a lot of chances, Carolina games can be lacking there. Florida can shut that down too. So we may very well see a series not completely unlike 2023, where it's very tight, they're all one-goal games, and the offense may be very difficult to come by for both teams. So far in the playoffs, Florida 3.75 goals scored per game, whereas Carolina at 3.4, so they've scored 34 goals so far. Goals against, Carolina ridiculous, 1.8 goals against per game. Florida 2.42 goals against per game, and that includes the first couple of games against Toronto, which were definitely a misadventure for Florida. The penalty kill and power play, both of those favor Carolina. Not a surprise. 28.1% on the power play for Carolina, 20.5% on the penalty kill for Florida. The penalty kill on the Carolina side, so to go with their 28.1% on the power play, they're also 93.3% on the penalty kill. Remember, anything over 110 is considered to be pretty elite. Well, on the Florida side, they're kind of elite too, 89.5% on the penalty kill. If the PKs for both these teams live up to expectation, very few power play goals will be scored in this series. Carolina's penalty kill is ridiculous, but so is Florida's. So we'll see. It's going to be a matter of two teams playing a very similar style against one another, and it's going to be whoever blinks first. Now, one area that they're not similar is hitting. The hitting side of things for Florida, 46.62 hits per 60 minutes. Carolina, 37.11. Now, one thing that was notable of that series between themselves and Washington, the one game that Carolina didn't throw very many hits, I think they had 16 in a game that they lost. The only loss in that series was when they didn't throw hits. So they do seem to play better when they're playing physical, but Florida thrives with that hockey too. So, once again, while the hitting numbers may not be the same, they may very well be playing a very similar style of hockey. A lot of forechecking, a lot of hits, and probably a lot of hits that people look at and go, that look kind of dirty, because the reality is when the hits go from during the regular season of 25 a game, maybe 25 a game, sometimes 30 or 40, and in the playoffs you're into like the 80 or 85, sometimes over 100 range, yeah, there's going to be some hits that are maybe on that borderline, right? Block shots per 60 minutes, very similar numbers, 13.62 for Florida versus 13.11 for the Carolina Hurricanes. If these teams are leading after one, they're both undefeated. Florida's 4-0, whereas Carolina is 3-0. Leading after two, that favors Florida, 7-0 versus 5-0 for Carolina. So only one time in these playoffs so far has Florida won a game where they weren't leading going into the third period. They're very good at shutting down other teams. They're also very good at getting a lead going into the third period. If they're trailing after 2 periods of play, don't turn the game off. Carolina's 1-2 if they're trailing after 2 periods. In these playoffs, Florida's 1-3. So they have had a win. They've lost 3, but it's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. Scoring by period. So looking at this, and I did this with the other conference final as well. In the first period, not much for Carolina. 5 goals, and they only allow 6. So the first period, very often, there's not a lot going on. We saw that often with Washington. I think we'll see that again here. Florida scoring 11 and allowing 10. Second period is really where both teams kind of shine here. 12-6 score for Carolina, whereas it's 16-9 in favor of Florida. Now, it continues into the third period. In fact, it's even more so for Carolina. They outscore the opposition 15-5 in the third period, whereas Florida 17-10. They outscore the opposition by in the third periods. In overtime, Carolina's scored twice. They've allowed 1. Florida has only gone to overtime once, and they scored. They got the 1 win in the 1 overtime game that was needed thus far in these playoffs. And coming through Tampa and Toronto, they've gone through the teams that start with T. Now they go into a series with a team that's name starts with a C. There you go. There's that stuff that you're not going to get that from the mainstream media. Whereas for Carolina, of course, going through New Jersey and Washington. So we'll see how this one goes. It should be fun. I think it'll be an interesting series. I do think it'll be low scoring. I think we're going to see a lot of 2-1, 3-2 kind of games. Probably at least once we'll see a game that's scoreless going into the third, and it really is going to be which team blinks first. Rod Brindamore kind of needs this, though. Carolina has not won a game in conference finals in quite some time. I think the last time they won a game in a conference final was 06 when they won the Stanley Cup, because they didn't win a game in the conference final in 2009, 2019, or, of course, most recently in 2023. So getting at least a win would be a start. Florida's not going to be likely to want to give up anything, though. Florida, it feels like, are able to just kind of turn it on. Carolina's shown that ability as well. So I think this series is going to be a lot of fun. Probably low scoring and low event, but we've been surprised before during these playoffs, so maybe we get surprised again. But let me know your thoughts. Who do you think wins and how? How do you think they win? Do you think the physical game's going to favor Florida? Do you figure that, Florida's going to be with their Stanley Cup experience and their confidence? Could that make a big difference? So, for instance, if Florida wins game one in Carolina tomorrow night, does that then start to eat away at Carolina's confidence just a little bit? Do they start doubting themselves and thinking about other conference finals? Or do they just shake it off and win game two? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.